Why?
I didn't want to anyway, but my bad. Are we live?
Yeah, it's okay though. Anybody on right now?
Hey guys.
Welcome back. So today we are talking about mental health and the church.
In the church.
And the church. Which is a touchy topic. It's a touchy topic. And a lot of times the church does not even like to fool with it.
No.
I feel like it's getting better now, but definitely when we were kids, they wouldn't.
I think it's better now, but I think it also depends on the church. Because
True.
recently meaning last year, I was going through something. My mom passed away in December of last year. And last year was a very trying year. And I remember speaking to someone, an older saint, who I was letting them know that, I had actually, had been talking to a therapist, because I was just going through so much dealing with the transitions of my mom's medical state. And she said, "Girl, don't you have the Holy Ghost? What? I don't understand what it is with y'all and these therapists.
That's crazy.
You just need to pray." And I was like, no, I really need to talk to someone. And then what I think I found was that in speaking to a therapist, not a psychiatrist, that might be what it is. Maybe some people think that when you're saying you went to go see a therapist, that you went to go see a psychiatrist, and you must be schizophrenic, or only crazy people see. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's a misinterpretation of what a therapist actually is and what they do, but it's looked down upon so bad, because there's so many scriptures. Cast your cares upon him, for he cares for you, and
Right.
He'll keep your mind in perfect peace if you keep your mind stayed on him.
Mm-hmm.
But the misconception is that just because we've been in church all our lives, just because we've heard the scriptures all of our lives, just because we know how to re-quote them, doesn't mean we know how to apply. Doesn't mean we actually understand what that even means, even though it seems very self-explanatory.
Right.
And I think that so many people have gone through so much trauma, and that so much trauma, so much grief, so much, just a lot of stuff, and I'm just gonna cast my cares on him.
So let's talk about this word trauma, though. So you work at a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I work at a charter school, and I'm assuming that they do it at hospitals too. But definitely in the schools now, they have, trauma informed trainings, and everybody is really pushing this trauma informed. Nobody until recently even dealt with trauma. They felt like trauma had to be something super duper dramatic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But there are little things that could be traumatic too.
Exactly.
And people are in pulpits, preaching, teaching, leading worship, teaching Sunday school, and they have dealt with trauma. But no, they have not dealt with their trauma. They've experienced trauma, but they have not dealt with it in a healthy way. They don't even realize or even believe that they have trauma.
That they have trauma.
And then you have the things where people have been abused and molested and
trauma.
dealt with the loss of a loved one, or dealt with divorce. All of that is trauma.
It's all trauma.
And they just think you just got to pray it away.
Right. And I think that so at my job at Barnes, yes, so the therapist that I was speaking about, that I said I saw last year, that was at Barnes. It was my manager who suggested we have an actual department called Employee Assistance Program. You would hear the title and think, oh, that's for people who need money. It's not. They have therapists. So you could be clowning on your job. They don't just fire you right away. Your manager reserves the right to say, you know what, I think you need to talk to someone. Maybe before firing you, you need to sit down with a therapist.
That's smart.
So that's what is there for as well as for our employees.
And we're trying to push that more. I know at my school we're trying to push that more. Instead of just suspending kids right away, they go see one of the counselors or one of the social workers.
But they should. But then you bring it back to church,
right?
And it's like, well, all you got to do is pray. You know what to pray. You know the scriptures. You know but don't shoot me for saying this. Oh,
not on this podcast.
But sometimes it's not enough. And so when I say it's not enough,
so
I'm not saying God's word is not enough.
This is so this is what I always equate it to. When people are dealing with physical illnesses, yes, they pray, but do they not go see a doctor? Do they not get surgeries? Do they not
take medicine?
Right. So why is mental and emotional health any different?
Exactly.
I feel like the same way God gave us physicians for our bodies, He's given us physicians for our minds and our hearts.
We've got a dentist for our teeth.
Exactly.
Teeth.
Because the Lord cares about the whole person. Faith without works is what? Exactly.
DEAD.
Exactly. So sometimes seeking therapy, seeking a counselor is putting that faith that God can heal us into work. Exactly.
The very first time that I saw a therapist was like 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that's when I found out, and oh my God, it made all the sense in the world. And I was like, oh my God, that I suffer from PTSD.
Man.
And that
I feel like you born black, you automatically suffer from PTSD at this point.
I suffer from PTSD from abusive situations, like with males. And that I suffer from abandonment issues. My dad died when I was 5.
Okay.
And I never got over that. And my mom never talked about it. So I was 5 when he died. What was I supposed to do with that?
Right.
And then for years, getting older, despising her and not understanding she's not talking about it and I'm not talking about it, but I was acting out and I got my butt beat instead because I was acting out, but no one ever addressed the
so that's another
real
thing.
issue.
As parents, I'm a parent. She's about to be a parent.
That's what my face is swollen. And my nose is really not this big in real life, guys. I'm sorry.
You're fine. So, as a mom, just speaking from experience, I have lost my father. I have lost grandparents, which were not as traumatic experiences, but I literally watched my father pass away. I have been divorced, which was traumatic for me. And I've lost a child. Mm-hmm. All of these things have happened to me, but because I am a parent, all of those things have also happened to my children. Mm-hmm. So I can't be lost in myself, right. And that's what we grew up in, the era of children are seen and not heard.
Exactly.
So even though we are experiencing the same thing as our parents, we weren't expected to even feel any kind of way about it because we kids.
We're kids.
And that's, now when I think about it, it's a crazy thought because it's like, no, like my kids lost their brother. My kids lost their grandfather.
Exactly.
They lost a spiritual grandmother. I lost my spiritual mother. She's like a godmother to me. She's like a grandmother to my children. And she passed away, and then 5 days later, my son passed away.
Right.
My kids experienced all of that. Their dad moving across state lines to somewhere else, marrying somebody new. All of these things are things that affect them. So as a parent, I can't ignore them because I'm going through my own trauma.
And I know that's what happened. When my father passed, my mom, it ended up putting her in a bad financial space, and she tapped out, and that was it. Like, she tapped out for like 7 years. Honestly, we never talked about my dad until 8 years ago. 8 years ago, maybe. He died 33 years ago, though.
That's crazy.
And when I asked her how come she never talked about him, she just said, oh, I didn't want to upset you, so.
And so what I learned with my children is every time I feel like, I don't want to make them sad, we are uncomfortable with other people's sadness.
We are.
We don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And so if we can avoid making them sad or triggering them, then we will. And sometimes, a lot of times, that's problematic.
It is.
Just today, I went for a run, and I came home and I peeked in on Jacob, who is 7. And he was just looking kind of down. I was like, what's wrong with you? Thinking, he got into an argument with Leon, his brother, older brother. And he was like, I just miss Dabre. I know, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't avoid it. Like, I try to teach them to be present in those moments. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to miss him. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay.
Right.
It's okay to cry about
Right.
it. But as parents, we have to allow our children to see us experience that, because they're going through it, and what they'll do is they'll internalize it and say, well, mommy's okay, so I should be okay too. And then that inadvertently teaches them to suppress those emotions, especially as young black boys. They have to be allowed the space to feel what they are feeling in that moment and to express it. And then for me to reinforce it and teach them how to express it in healthy ways.
Instead of being like, you need to man up.
Exactly.
You need to, and that's how come a lot of our black men, or men in general, but a lot of our black men are just so
And
hard.
now these men are in church, leading our churches, deacons, just hurt people. So
They do.
You in the church thinking that you healing people.
And you're not.
And you're not.
So then it seems like when you talk about therapy or seeing a psychologist or something, it's always taught, you're looked down upon, unless you're saying, I need to go talk to my pastor because I've been suffering from depression. Oh yeah, go talk to the man of God. But the man of God, honestly, not saying he can't talk to you. Hi, Josh. Not saying the man of God can't talk to you.
Hey, Josh.
But there's a lot of our pastors don't have the knowledge of psychology or how the mind actually works. A lot of
or
leaders,
even the mental and emotional health.
Exactly. A lot of the leaders only know scripture, which is it's good. They know scripture. However, some of us need to actually, now you're 30, 40, 50 years old, need to be sat down and said, okay, what brought you to this point? And it's probably something that happened 30 years ago. And what let so many different things piling on top of each other. How did we get here? You got to go all the way back. But a lot of our leaders don't even know how to, to do that. So I think that's where now, as God has given man the mind to practice medicine, psychology, neurology, dentistry, and like everything else, it's okay we need to be told, or it needs to be expressed, that it's okay for you to go and seek, more extensive counseling, because our pastors don't have the time to sit. If they had to sit down, and if every member of every church call their church to schedule a meeting with their pastor to like lay down all of their burdens and issues, the pastor would probably run away.
Now, I would imagine that in training and when they're, training for their certifications and everything, that
Who?
Therapists.
Oh, okay.
That they learn how not to carry personally, because you're essentially taking on
Social
everything, right?
Yeah.
You're essentially taking on everything that people are feeding you. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, do pastors have the capacity to not? You know what I'm saying?
I don't think
carry
so.
those loads and
because
burdens.
in general they love their members, they love their church, and to see their members hurting, I don't think they have. I don't know. Maybe some do. But let's talk about the pastor a few weeks ago who committed suicide. He was a pastor and he was leading this like large congregation, and he was a worship leader, but he also was known for not extreme depression, but he suffered from chronic depression. It's something that he talked about, over the pulpit. It's something that he has always struggled with. And then he took his own life, a pastor. And you would think, Jesus, a pastor, he must not know the word. But that clinical depression, anxiety, Lord have mercy. Because I'm telling you, it's some bipolar folks running around these churches. It's a whole lot of stuff.
You know what? Because growing up, and I know you've experienced, if I've experienced it in the church that I grew up in, those crazy people with demons who show up to a service, and the church just got to make sure they get them out. Either they exorcising the demon or they get them out, right?
By force or by police. Oh, I got a story.
as an adult now,
yeah,
those people were clearly
clinically
something.
something.
They clearly were struggling with mental illness.
Look, there was a at my former so there was this church and
That shall remain nameless.
a lady had entered into the sanctuary during praise and worship. I was not there at that particular time. I was running late. Thank the Lord. This lady came in during praise and worship, came down the aisle. As she's getting closer to the pulpit, she is taking off her clothes. She had a bag of frozen peas, and something wrong.
Right?
She threw it. She makes her way to the pulpit in the choir stand. She is now naked. She is running through. It takes multiple people to try to get her to. She is standing on the back row of the choir stand, pees on the chair, and is trying to jump into the baptismal pool on a Sunday morning.
That's not funny, but it's funny. It's funny in my mind to think like what the saints have been thinking.
There's children. There's children present. There are.
I mean, indecent exposure is not okay.
It's not okay, and you're in a church, but the first thing people were like, "Oh, she is possessed. She is." Right. Could it be that she's schizophrenic?
She doesn't have the resources to have medication or even a doctor to prescribe medication.
Exactly.
So how can the church help people like that versus trying to exorcise them or just put them out and lead them to the street?
Happened to my uncle. I have an uncle. He passed away several years ago, but he went to Vietnam. And you hear a lot of stories about our Vietnam vets. Who
vets in general.
Vets in general, but Vietnam did a doozy on a lot of people.
Right.
And my uncle was one of those people. He was responsible for picking up the body parts.
Ooh.
After explosions, yes.
Oh my goodness.
He was retrieving body parts. When he came back from Vietnam, he was living with my mom for a while, and my mom said like his sleep schedule was off. He would sleep during the day, and when he was sleeping, he would be screaming.
My goodness.
In his sleep. He was hearing the sirens, the sounds of the sirens and the bombs and stuff. And how he coped, he ended up becoming an alcoholic.
Right.
He ended up becoming an alcoholic, and he also ended up becoming a manic depressive.
So now the
church, later in his life, schizophrenic. But the church wrote him off.
And then
they didn't know how to handle him.
But then they look down on you because you're an alcoholic and you're a drug addict and you're a sex addict.
Because all you got to do is cast your cares upon him, for he cares for you. There's no need for. Could you imagine having to pick up body parts?
That's crazy.
Let me go pick up this arm and try to put it back with the body. I don't even pick up
dead bugs.
I can't even step on a bug because of the sound. Either. It takes me down. Anyway.
Just thinking about it. I forgot.
It's a mess.
Bugs freak me out. But... No, but in real life, like, that's so wild. That's such a wild job to have.
It is.
And then you send people back home and they just supposed to live like normal.
They're supposed to live like normal. So when my uncle got sicker in the, like, I'll say 10 years ago, alcohol just tore him up. He's like mentally unstable. Mm-hmm. And I remember asking my mom, because I was so frustrated because I loved him. And I was like, you hang up the phone when he calls, because he'll call when he's drunk. He would call when he was drunk, and he would be cussing everybody out. So my mom would, in the name of Jesus, slam the phone down, and I'd be like, but Mom, he's sick. How come the church doesn't know how to meet his needs?
Right.
Because we're not equipped. We didn't go to school for psychology. The scriptures weren't alone just going to help him get over those traumas from Vietnam. They just weren't. The alcohol was helping to suppress, but it made him worse and do other things. So my mom couldn't answer the question. She couldn't answer the question except for, well, I don't want nobody calling and cussing me out. I was like, but he has a problem. There is a problem.
Yeah.
He wouldn't do that if he was not drunk. Clearly he has a problem. How come the church cannot, this in general, the church doesn't have, not the entire church. A lot of churches don't have the resources or the education for or the church is not made up of psychologists who
Right.
can help cases like this. And there's so many. Bipolar, I'm telling you, because the way some of the saints act, I know they bipolar.
Some
you
first
crazy.
ladies. Somebody first lady bipolar.
Somebody, look.
In real
But anyway. But yeah, there's some mental health issues going on in
I
our
didn't see a
churches, and we
therapist
just don't
until
know.
I was going through my well, nope. I started therapy right before we separated.
Okay.
That was in 2014, 2015. I can't remember which one. It had to be in 2014 because I started going when Mike Brown was murdered.
Okay.
And I went to Agape Christian Counseling. It was okay. My therapist was a white Christian lady, so it was okay. In retrospect and moving forward, I would like to have a black woman therapist.
Okay.
Just because I feel like it would be better for someone who can relate to my actual life and struggles.
Right.
But therapy was like, it helped it today, like still, like I find myself using the things that I learned in therapy with her. I find myself being able to help other people cope with their stuff. Like people use me as their therapist all the time.
Yeah, and I have people talk to me, and I'm like, well, when do you think it started?
Right?
When do you know, because I remember that's what the therapist did with me. Like, can you pinpoint, what happened in your life?
Right.
And that's what, I mean.
Learning to listen and not, because what we do when people talk to us is.
Active listening.
Yeah. Okay, so do this. Girl, when I had you know what I'm saying? We give advice before we even listen to the whole thing. Sometimes we don't even need to say anything. Sometimes
listen.
people just need to talk.
Some people just need to talk.
But having the wisdom to know when to speak and when to say less.
Right.
What to say. All of that type of stuff comes with prayer. Yes. Because I know when people talk to me, I'll be like, okay, Lord, what am I supposed to do in this moment? What am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to say anything at all?
Right.
So it's not like we're completely negating prayer in Scripture.
At all. We are not negating that.
I don't really care how people think.
We're just saying that in addition to, some of us need extra help.
All of us need
extra help.
Every last
None
one
of us should be walking around here
help.
saying,
if you live
I
in
never see a therapist.
the United States of America, you need extra help.
Matter of fact, take it out of the church. Black folks don't believe in therapy.
Yeah.
As a culture.
Yep.
It's almost like a sign of weakness and that you're crazy.
It is. It's a sign of that white people
let's
stuff.
take it out. It's not just the church, y'all. It's
not
our culture to a therapist. What you need a therapist for? We don't see no therapist. It clearly.
I love talking to you, Bree.
Clearly we don't.
But yeah, so what was I finna say? We were talking about black people don't do therapy.
Yeah.
Oh, so right. So in general, black people don't do therapy. However, the church is supposed to be somewhere where you can go for healing, yes? So
exactly.
Why can't we go to the church for mental and emotional healing outside of just being told to pray, outside of being slapped upside your head with blessing oil?
Because they're not educated.
But
or have the resources.
But some don't even want to be. Because they don't believe that it's necessary. They don't believe,
exactly.
Like you said at the beginning of this episode, you were specifically told why y'all keep going to these therapists.
Why do y'all keep going to these therapists and you got the Holy Ghost? Because I need to.
Right.
Right. If I could answer that question, if I could solve my own issue,
Now, I was fortunate enough.
And I was praying during the same time. I was going to therapy. I was like, And how I ended up in therapy was me praying like, God, this is getting out of control. And I just didn't know what to do. And the therapist that I ended up talking to was not just a therapist. She dealt with with people who were going through transitions of parents who were of older age, or with people who were transitioning their children, or who were foster parents and stuff like that. It was very specific to the particular need that I had at the time, and she was able to give me resources, something that a particular church couldn't give me. Particular resources, names of other organizations and people to talk to and reach out to. And someone to not judge me, because the first thing someone would have said regarding my own mother would have been, well, that's your mama. You need to move her in with you. That wasn't the answer, though.
Right.
But that's what you would have got at church. Is that your mama? You need to move him in with you.
Right.
But that's not how that was supposed to work. So I needed a unbiased someone who didn't know her, and everyone knew her.
Yeah.
So I couldn't talk to someone who didn't know her. I mean, someone who did know her, because the automatic thing would have been connecting with that. Well, that's your mama, girl. You know your mama would have. I need to talk to someone where I can lay it all on the line, and they say, okay, so you do realize that's a huge responsibility, and this is what would happen, and this is da-da-da-da-da.
And to not make you feel guilty
and
for
to not make me feel guilty.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which, a lot of times, the church has the issue with making you feel guilty.
I was fortunate enough when I go through stuff. I was fortunate enough, though, when I was going through my divorce, to have a pastor and a first lady who recommended I go see somebody.
Yeah.
And when my son passed away, recommended that I go to counseling. Our church actually has grief counseling. Mm-hmm. My mom leads it.
Right. We
have grief counseling at our church.
Yeah.
Because it's necessary.
It's super necessary.
And whenever anybody in our church loses a loved one, my pastor has this set of books that I told you I was going to get you and I didn't. And it's, if I was thinking about it, I would have pulled them off the shelf. But it's a set of books dealing with grief.
Yeah.
And he's mails that out. If you lose a loved one, then you get that. It's like 5 books. I think they're really small, really quick reads. But to have a pastor who understands the importance of mental health and emotional health is really
there's a lot
great.
They don't. There's a lot that I'm not saying they don't, but they don't talk about it. Because the last thing a person wants to hear when their loved one passes is they're in a better place.
Right.
Well, at least they don't have to suffer anymore.
And that's another thing. It's like, you lost somebody. Like, don't try to talk me out of my natural emotion. Exactly. Because people will say it to be joking, but literally, Jesus wept. Why did he had the power and did to bring Lazarus back, and he still wept.
Yeah. He was sad.
So how in the world could people expect us? Oh, I'm sorry. So someone asked to post the grief books later. I will.
Okay.
I will. And it's another great book that y'all gotta read. It is called How to Fix a Broken Heart. That book, I'm telling you, that one is also short and quick. I'm about to just go get all these books right now.
I was about to say, why don't you just go get them?
I shall. I'll be back in, like Tabitha Brown say, in a pair of seconds.
You're leaving me.
Girl,
I can't do this by myself. Oh my God, I can't do this alone.
Yes, you can.
Anyway, I remember needing to see like a school counselor when I was younger, because again, when my dad died when I was 5 and I didn't know how to process, I was acting out in school, acting a plumb fool. And my mom would be so angry with me, but the counselor was just like, no, something's gotta be wrong. And my mom just couldn't, because my mom was a diehard, old school Pentecostal saint. She didn't understand. She wasn't acting out, so why should I?
Right.
It all had to do with the death of my father. Matter of fact, I became an alcoholic by 15 or 16 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I have the books. Someone said, Sister Denise said, I believe therapy works, but must be a good fit. Agreed. So that's why I was saying, when I had a therapist, she was just okay. But moving forward, I'll probably I will find a therapist that's a better fit for me. So this first book is How to Fix a Broken Heart by Dr. Guy Winch. My friend got this book for me, and he said it really helped him, so he bought it for me, and I read it. I'm telling y'all, read this book for real, in real life. Read this book. It is so good. I recommended it to somebody else, and she read it on the bus ride to Branson and finished it that bus ride and was like, listen, this book was great, thank you. So the grief books are by Kenneth C. I don't know how to say this last name, but it's Haugk. And it's a 4, because clearly I can't count. It's a 4-book set, I believe, unless I just didn't get all the books. But it's A Time to Grieve, Experiencing Grief, Finding Hope and Healing, and Rebuilding and Remembering. And that's by Kenneth C. And his last name is...
display them long enough.
I'm sorry. But...
See that, guys?
Whatever.
See?
So, if you can find those books, definitely Amazon has the How to Fix a Broken Heart. And then this book is actually a fiction book, and they made a movie for it that I always buy people whenever I see it. So, she's the historian. Lydia is the historian. I'm the librarian in real life. Like, I'm the librarian. You need a book, let me know. I'll find it for you. But The Shack. And I know a lot of people have read it. It's an extremely popular book. But that book, even though it's fiction, deals with the spiritual side of dealing with grief and being angry with God. And have you read The Shack?
No, which people will say, you can't question God.
And my pastor always says, you can question God, but don't question his character. So you can say, God, I don't understand this. Instead of saying, if you were such a good God, then why did it? So there's a difference. He always says, you can question God. If he's our Father, you know what I'm saying? Right. Why wouldn't we be able to question him or ask him questions, but not to question his character?
Absolutely.
So that's that on that. But yes, check those books out, especially and particularly How to Fix a Broken Heart. I absolutely love that book so much. Like, I can't stress it enough, because it just doesn't deal with grief. It deals with grief of losing somebody, grief of losing a pet, grief of of a relationship ending. So it kind of covers all the bases.
And I think we're not trying to tell anybody that you need therapy, but I think it is good if we all did try it.
I think
we all should
feel like everybody needs
therapy. There's so many issues, like in our I'm not gonna say, so let me not say that. So many people struggle with, like, the abandonment issue thing, or how many women choose the wrong men.
Right.
A lot of it, if you go back and you talk to them, it's based off of something dealing with their father or the lack thereof. Children who suffer from growing up in a particular environment, whether it's both parents or just one parent, whether it's the child who had to grow up in foster care or the child who found out they were adopted. Like, there's so many different layers, and just to say, well, at least you had someone who adopted you.
Right. Sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
At least you had someone, well, at least God was so good to you, you made it out alive to tell the story. Barely. Some people are sitting, there's some people sitting in our churches today. I believe half the church needs therapy.
Half.
More than half. My mother was one of those people.
I honestly
she suffered from a whole lot of stuff.
Everybody needs therapy, because people assume that you only need therapy if you've experienced something. But life is experiencing something.
Exactly.
We experience things all day long.
Yeah.
Therapy helps us to process properly. Yeah. It helps us to have better and healthier relationships with ourselves and with other people. We don't have to wait until somebody dies or somebody gets abused or you know what I'm saying? We don't have to wait until then. It's almost like preventive care.
It is preventive care.
A lot of people wait until they're sick or wait until they have a disease to see a doctor. But we go to the doctor yearly. At least
once a year for a full physical.
Exactly. That's why I say I feel like everybody needs therapy.
They should. They do. So we're not saying you guys are crazy, because black folks like to make it seem like you're crazy if you go to therapy.
Right.
No, like, to stay sane. And to even sometimes find out if you got some other stuff going on.
To be healthy.
Mental health.
And to not be the toxic person that's causing other people to need
mental
therapy.
Health does not mean crazy. So when we say mental health, we're not saying crazy people.
Right.
Your mind, mental health. You have to keep your mind healthy.
As basic as it gets.
Because you know what? The only way to keep your mind in perfect peace, for him to keep your mind in perfect peace, is if your mind is healthy.
Right.
You know, your mind has to be healthy to
Right.
be able to process those scriptures that we're being told to keep reciting, and we'll be okay.
Right.
Well, my mind is not even healthy enough to...
Fake it till you make it.
I can't fake it till I make it. No way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like that's pretty much all we have for this episode. Kind of short, but we just wanted to talk about that because it's such a big issue.
It is a big issue.
It's such a big issue, and I just feel so bad for so many people. And I feel bad for people who've been talked about, because I know what that's like, for even admitting that you saw a therapist. And I feel horrible for the people who go to churches where pastors will dog out therapy over the pulpit. And I feel sorry for our community, our relatives who would do the same.
Right.
Who would just say, girl, we don't get no therapy. You better go do something constructive with your life, or just go get a hobby.
I survived it. You can survive it too.
No. That's
Time
not
out
good
for that.
enough.
Let's break all those cycles.
Break all the cycles, because all we keep doing is reproducing children.
And passing it on.
And we keep passing it on. And these cycles have to stop. These generational cycles. I don't want to say curses because I've been told that ain't biblical. Well, I think it is. But anyway, we do keep passing on these cycles. They keep coming up in our different generations, or our lines of what do you call it? Our genealogy. And they keep popping up. So at some point, we gotta break it, y'all. So anyway, until next time. Take care of yourself.
Yes.
Mind, body, soul, spirit. Take care of your mind.
And let me say this, because it's good to have a support system, and it's good to have people that you can talk to, even if it's not a therapist. But be mindful of the person who you're talking to's mental state and emotional state. Are you able to carry this load that I'm about to dump on you right now? What kind of day or have you had? Are you able to, you know what I'm saying, be support for me right now in this moment? Because sometimes what happens is we just get on the phone, we get on text message, and we just start dumping on other people, and they don't have the capacity to even deal with it. Right. Whether at that moment or ever. Right.
Yeah. And you have to be like upfront and tell people, you know what? I love you, but this sounds like it's a bit much for me to even handle emotionally. Because there are times where you can talk to someone and they're going through their issue, and their issue brings you down as well. Let me refer you to, I don't know, another person, because I wanna be there for you, but yeah, that's too much of a doozy for me.
And just from personal experience, some practical things that does help. So today, every day, except Sundays, I wake up between 4:45 and 5 o'clock.
Too early.
I have to. I wake up between 4:45 and 5 o'clock to work out. And I work out for about an hour. Today's Saturday, obviously. I ain't got to be up and go nowhere. So I lay around. I don't sleep in because, I can't sleep in past 5:30. So I'm laying around and I don't get up right away to work out. My mood was so weird. I felt so weird and like really in my feelings.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I don't even understand. Like, I don't know. I feel like I need something, but I don't know what it is, or I don't know. I just felt off. And then I realized I always work out.
Always work out.
So I went and did like 4 miles, I don't know, something like that. And I was better.
That's good.
But I realized, and I already knew this.
Exercise.
I already knew it. Yeah, I already knew it. But it didn't dawn on me until after the fact today. Physical activity helps the mental and emotional state. And there's a scientific reason that explains why. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm not even going to pretend like I do know it off the top of my head. But I know I've read it somewhere before. But it honestly and truly helps with being outside in the open, fresh air, getting
that's true.
Physical activity. All of that helps with the mental and emotional state.
That's
so
true. Sometimes
you eating all that crazy food, all that bad food, and then you not working out, you not drinking enough water. Our physical states also impact our mental and emotional state.
It's all connected.
But
really
yeah,
is.
which is another thing that the church don't talk about.
Exactly.
Physical health, financial health,
Financial health.
mental and
Lord have
emotional
mercy.
health.
But y'all
And
got
that's
that
not
doctrine
all
on lock
churches.
though. Sorry.
We know it ain't all churches.
It's not. We're never trying. No.
And I
it's
try not to be the one to always be like, not my church, but it really ain't my church.
Anyway.
We talk about everything. They address everything.
Anyway.
But, so yeah. So that's all we got for y'all today.
That's it.
You usually like you was posing for a picture.
Y'all, I'm
Thanks
just
to
mad at
those
looking at
of you
myself.
who
I'm
have
so swollen.
tuned in and who have chimed in.
Yes.
We will try to go live more often when we can. But that's all. Take care of yourselves.
And bye-bye.
See y'all later.